At 2:40 in the morning, a woman in labor arrives at Al Ahli Hospital in Hebron. She's wearing a headscarf, moving slowly, one hand pressed against her lower back. Her companions guide her through the entrance, their voices urgent but controlled. The night staff directs them toward the obstetrics department on the second floor. The woman never makes it to obstetrics. Because she isn't a woman, and she isn't in labor. She's a male Mossad operative wearing a silicone pregnancy belly, and in less than 10 minutes, someone will be dead. This is the story of how a single deception, a fake pregnancy, became the entry point for one of the most controversial hospital infiltrations in modern intelligence history, and how the lie that got them inside would create questions that no one involved could ever fully answer. November 2015. The West Bank. A 20-year-old Palestinian named Azam al-Shalalday is recovering in room 207 on the third floor of Al Ahli Hospital. He's been there for weeks, healing from gunshot wounds. Israeli authorities say he stabbed a settler on October 25th. They say he's a Hamas operative. They want him in custody. But there's a problem. Ahli Hospital is in Area A of the West Bank, officially under full Palestinian Authority control. It's a protected medical facility. Civilians fill every floor. Security at the entrance asks questions. Staff monitor the halls. And Azam's room is never empty. Family members rotate through constantly, staying overnight, keeping watch. A raid would be messy, loud, public. The kind of operation that generates international headlines and diplomatic consequences. So instead, they choose a lie. The operative selected for the pregnancy disguise has done undercover work before, but never this. The preparation takes weeks. A medical-grade silicone prosthetic 9 kilograms, custom-fitted to move naturally when he walks. Clothing that drapes correctly. A headscarf tied in the specific style common to Hebron. Posture training. How pregnant women shift their weight, how they breathe, where they place their hands. But the physical disguise is only half the problem. The other half is the story. A pregnant woman arriving at a hospital needs a reason, a timeline, a history. Contractions started when? How far apart? First pregnancy or second? Which doctor have you been seeing? The cover has to survive at least 3 conversations. The entrance, the triage nurse, whoever directs them upstairs. One wrong answer, one detail that doesn't fit, and the entire operation collapses before it starts. The team rehearses. They choose a wheelchair. Pregnant women in distress sometimes arrive in wheelchairs. It adds urgency. It makes people move faster, ask fewer questions. They build the entry team, 4 people. The disguised operative, 2 companions playing the role of concerned relatives, and one more dressed as a woman in a black niqab, face completely covered. That 4th person is also male, also armed, also trained to kill if the deception fails. But here's the risk they can't rehearse away. Hospitals have cameras. Hospitals have staff who remember faces. And if anything goes wrong inside, there's no easy way out. The same choke point they're using to enter the front doors. The narrow corridors becomes a fatal trap if someone raises an alarm. The night of November 12th, the team assembles 2 blocks from the hospital. 25 operatives total. The 4-person entry team goes first. The remaining 21 wait, dressed as Palestinian civilians, fake beards, keffiyehs, heavy jackets. They'll follow 60 seconds later, but only if the first group makes it through. At 2:40 a.m., the pregnant woman and her companions approach the entrance. The guard looks up. This is the moment. If he hesitates, if he asks for ID, if he sees something wrong in the way the woman moves or breathes or holds her belly, the entire operation stops here. The guard waves them through. They're inside. The companions ask for directions. A staff member points toward the second floor obstetrics. They nod, thank her, start moving toward the stairs. But they don't go to the second floor. Behind them, the doors open again. 21 more people flood into the hospital. No one stops them. No alarm sounds. The overnight staff assumes they're family members, visitors for other patients. It's a hospital. People come and go. The entry team reaches the stairwell and breaks formation. The wheelchair is abandoned. The pregnant woman pulls off the headscarf. Weapons come out. They move toward the third floor, toward room 207. And now, the deception has a new problem. They're no longer pretending to be someone else. They're exactly who they are, armed operatives in a civilian hospital, steps away from a room that might contain not just their target, but his family, other patients, witnesses who will remember everything. The door to room 207 is closed. They don't knock. 5 armed men burst through the door. Room 207 is small, 2 beds, dim light from the hallway. 1 patient near the window, Khaled al-Suwaiti, 50 years old, recovering from his own injuries. And in the bed closest to the door, Azam al-Shalalde, the target. But there's a 3rd person in the room, Abdullah al-Shalalde, 27 years old, Azam's cousin. He's been sleeping in a chair beside the bed. When the door crashes open, he stands up. The lead operative shouts in Arabic, "We are soldiers." It's a strange thing to say. They're not in uniform, they're still wearing the civilian disguises, the fake beards, the kefiehs. One still has remnants of the niqab pushed back. They look like everyone and no one. The announcement is meant to establish authority, to freeze everyone in place, to prevent resistance. But Abdullah is already moving. The first shot hits him in the chest. He goes down, then more shots. 3, 4. Eyewitness accounts will later disagree on the exact number, but everyone agrees on what happens next. They keep shooting after he's on the ground. Khaled, in the other bed, has a gun pointed at his head. He doesn't move. He barely breathes. Azam is pulled from his bed, still weak from his injuries. They cuff his hands. Someone grabs the abandoned wheelchair from the stairwell. They load him into it. The entire sequence door to exit takes 90 seconds. But those 90 seconds create a problem no one planned for. They came for an arrest. They left with a body. Abdullah al-Shalalde wasn't on the target list. He wasn't flagged as a combatant. He was a cousin staying overnight in a hospital room, and now he's bleeding out on the floor while the operatives wheel Azam toward the stairwell. The hospital is waking up. Nurses hear the gunshots. Doctors emerge from other rooms. The operatives don't run. Running would break the cover, but they move with purpose. Weapons visible now, no longer pretending to be visitors or family. The whole building knows something has happened. They reach the ground floor. The same entrance they walked through 15 minutes ago. The same guard who waved the pregnant woman inside now watches as 24 armed men exit with a handcuffed prisoner in a wheelchair. He doesn't try to stop them. They're outside, vehicles waiting. Azam is loaded into one. The operatives disperse into 3 separate cars. No sirens, no flashing lights. They disappear into Hebron's pre-dawn streets. The deception worked. They got in, they got the target, they got out. But inside room 207, Abdullah al-Shalalde is dead. Here's what the operatives didn't fully account for. Al-Ahli Hospital has security cameras. Not just at the entrance throughout the building. Hallways, stairwells, every angle of their entry and exit. Within hours, the footage is reviewed, then copied, then released. The world watches a pregnant woman in a wheelchair become a pregnant woman in a headscarf, become a man with a gun. The footage shows the moment in the stairwell when the transformation happens. The headscarf comes off, the belly stays on for a few more seconds, then disappears under the jacket. The wheelchair, abandoned and then retrieved. The niqab-wearing operative, face covered until the 3rd floor, then suddenly visible, male, armed, and it shows something else. Something that turns the entire operation into an international incident. The footage shows that Abdullah al-Shalalde didn't attack anyone. He stood up, that's all. He was barely on his feet when the first shot was fired. Israeli officials will later say he posed a threat, that the operatives felt endangered, that split-second decisions were made in a high-risk environment. But the footage raises a question the operatives may not have asked themselves in that room. Was the shooting inevitable, or was it the result of an operation designed without an exit plan for witnesses? Because here's the problem with deception-based infiltrations: once the disguise drops, everyone who sees your real face becomes a liability. The pregnant woman disguise got them into the hospital undetected, but it didn't get them out undetected. The moment they revealed themselves as armed operatives in room 207, they created witnesses who would remember, report, identify. Abdullah saw their faces. So did Khaled. So did anyone in the hallway. And in that moment, someone made a decision. There's a recording that surfaces weeks later, not video but audio from inside the hospital. You can hear the argument in Hebrew, barely audible, in the stairwell after the shooting. 2 voices. One says they need to move faster. The other says something went wrong. The first voice responds, "It's done. We leave now." It's impossible to know what they're referring to. Impossible to know if there was a debate about the shooting or about something else entirely. But the audio confirms what the camera footage already suggested. This operation didn't go exactly as planned. Back in the command center monitoring the live updates, there's a moment of silence when the report comes through. Target secured, one additional casualty, that's the phrase used. Someone asks, was he armed? The response takes longer than it should, negative. Now the operation has a different problem. The deception that got them inside, brilliant, effective, documented on camera, is now attached to a killing that looks, to the outside world, like an execution. The pregnant woman becomes the story. The dead cousin becomes the story. And Azam al-Shalalday, the original target, becomes almost secondary. Amnesty International opens an investigation. The Red Cross files a formal complaint. The Palestinian Authority calls it an assassination. The footage circulates on every news network in the region. And inside Israeli intelligence, there's a quiet discussion that doesn't make it into any official report should they have aborted. Because there's a protocol for undercover operations. If the risk escalates beyond acceptable parameters, you abort. You walk away. You try again another time with a different approach. But at what point did this operation cross that line? When Abdullah stood up? When the first shot was fired? Or earlier when they decided that getting the target out was more important than controlling who saw them do it? The pregnant woman disguise was perfect. The entry was flawless. The arrest was successful. But no one can answer the question that matters most. Was the deception too good? Did it get them so deep into the hospital that the only way out was through a witness who couldn't be left alive? 3 weeks before the operation, the planning team sits in a windowless room in Tel Aviv, reviewing blueprints of Al-Ahli Hospital. They've obtained floor plans, shift schedules, camera locations. They know which entrances have guards, which hallways have the most foot traffic, which rooms have sight lines to the stairwells. Someone raises the question, what if there are visitors in the room? It's a valid concern. Azam has been hospitalized for weeks. Family visits daily. Sometimes they stay overnight. The intelligence reports confirm this rotating cousins, brothers, his mother on weekends. The team leader responds, we time it for the shift change. Between 2 and 3 a.m. Visiting hours are long over. Hospital is at minimum staff. Even if someone's there, it's one person, maybe two. We control the room, secure the target, exit before anyone realizes what's happened. But there's an assumption buried in that answer, that anyone present in the room will comply, that the announcement we are soldiers will be enough, that people in a hospital at 3 a.m, woken from sleep, will freeze rather than react. They don't rehearse for someone standing up. The night of the operation, after the pregnant woman cover gets them through the entrance, there's a moment in the stairwell where the team pauses. They're on the 2nd floor. One more flight to go. The lead operative keys his radio, entry successful. Proceeding to target. The voice on the other end, copy. Time check, 4 minutes since entry, you're ahead of schedule. Slow down, it's counterintuitive, but it's correct. Moving too fast draws attention. Hospital staff notice people who rush. They assume emergency, they follow. They ask if they can help. The whole point of the deception was to blend in, and blending in means moving at the same pace as everyone else. So they wait. 30 seconds in the stairwell. Listening, the disguised operative, the one who wore the pregnancy belly, peels off the headscarf. The silicone prosthetic comes off, handed to another team member who shoves it into a bag. Their civilian clothes stay on, but now they're armed, visible, ready. One of them whispers, if there's more than 2 people in the room, we abort. The lead operative nods. But here's what they don't clarify. What constitutes more than 2? Does the target count? Does a sleeping visitor count differently than an awake one? They're making decisions on the fly, filling in gaps the planning session never addressed. They move up to the 3rd floor. The hallway is empty. Room 207 is 6 doors down on the left. Lights are off in most rooms. One nurse is visible at the far end of the corridor, her back turned, working at a medication cart. They approach the door. The lead operative's hand is on the handle. He looks back at the team. This is the last possible abort point. Once they go through this door, there's no walking it back. Whatever happens in that room, they own. He opens the door. 2 beds, 2 patients, 1 visitor, within parameters. The operation continues, but the count is wrong. There aren't 2 patients. There's 1 patient Azam and 1 other patient who's unrelated to the target. They knew Azam had a roommate from the intelligence brief, but the brief didn't emphasize it, didn't flag it as a complication. The assumption was that anyone else in the room would be so focused on their own recovery that they'd barely register what was happening, and the visitor Abdullah isn't just sitting. He's sleeping in a chair that's been pulled close to Azam's bed. When the door bursts open, he doesn't freeze. He wakes up disoriented, adrenaline spiking, and his body does what bodies do when startled. He stands. The lead operative shouts, "We are soldiers." It's supposed to work. It's worked before in other operations. The combination of the announcement and the visible weapons usually creates immediate compliance. People's brains process soldiers as authority even when nothing else makes sense. But Abdullah is still half asleep. He's processing the men in civilian clothes, the guns, the shouting. His cousin is in the bed behind him. And for maybe 2 seconds, that's all it is. 2 seconds, he doesn't comply. He doesn't sit back down. He's just standing there, confused. The second operative, the one closest to Abdullah, makes a decision. He fires. Later, in the debrief, he'll say he saw Abdullah reach for something, saw movement toward his waistband, assessed threat, and responded. But the camera footage, when it's reviewed, shows something else. Shows Abdullah's hands at his sides. Shows him standing, yes, but not reaching. Not lunging, just standing. The other operatives don't question it in the moment. 1 shot becomes 3, becomes 5. Suppressive fire. Eliminate the threat. Move to the next step. Except now there's blood spreading across the floor. Now Khaled, in the other bed, is wide awake with a gun inches from his face. Now the room smells like gunpowder and the entire third floor has heard the shots. The lead operative makes a split-second assessment, continue or abort. If they abort now, they leave empty-handed. They leave a body and witnesses and cameras that recorded everything. They've burned the deception and gained nothing. If they continue, they take Azam, but they take him from a room where someone just died, where another patient is a direct witness, where staff will flood the hallway within seconds. He chooses to continue. Azam is pulled from the bed. He's groggy, weak, and he's seeing his cousin's body on the floor. He starts screaming. One operative clamps a hand over his mouth while another gets the cuffs on. They drag him toward the door. The wheelchair, someone remembers the wheelchair. It was part of the pregnant woman cover, left in the stairwell. One operative runs back to get it while the others hold position in the doorway. This is the moment where everything could collapse. Hospital staff are coming. Voices in the hallway. The nurse who was at the medication cart is walking toward room 207, trying to understand what she heard. She sees the men, sees the guns, stops. One of the operatives turns to her and says, in Arabic, "Stay back." Official operation. She doesn't stay back. She doesn't come closer either. She just stands there 10 feet away, a witness to everything that happens next. The wheelchair arrives. Azam is shoved into it. They move into the hallway. The nurse presses herself against the wall. Other doors are opening now, patients looking out. Another staff member emerging from a side room. The operatives don't run, but they walk fast. The deception is over. Everyone knows they're not visitors, not family, not Palestinian civilians. But everyone also sees the guns, sees the organization, sees the way they move as a coordinated unit, and no one tries to stop them. They reach the stairwell. 1 flight down, they pass another staff member coming up. He flattens against the wall, lets them pass. Ground floor. The entrance where the pregnant woman walked through 15 minutes ago. The same doors, the same guard. He opens the door for them. They're outside. The vehicles are there. Azam goes into the first one. The operatives split into 3 cars. Engines start. And for maybe 5 seconds, there's a feeling of success. They got the target. They're out. The deception worked. Then the radio crackles. Confirm status of additional individual in the room. Silence. Confirm status. Deceased. The cars pull away. Behind them, Al-Ahli Hospital erupts. Staff rushing to room 207. Someone calling the police. Someone else already uploading the camera footage. The pregnant woman disguise got them in clean. But there was never a disguise designed to get them out. By 4:15 a.m., 90 minutes after the operatives left Al-Ahli Hospital, the security footage is already circulating. Not through official channels, through WhatsApp groups, Twitter, local Palestinian news networks. The hospital director, Dr. Jihad Shawar, doesn't wait for morning press conferences. He releases the recordings immediately. The pregnant woman entering, the transformation in the stairwell, the exit with Azam in the wheelchair, and the timestamp showing Abdullah al-Shalalday was alive when they entered room 207, dead when they left. Israeli officials are still preparing their initial statement when the footage goes viral. They planned to control the narrative targeted. Operation, known Hamas operative, successful arrest. Instead, the narrative is already written. Undercover forces disguised as a pregnant woman killed an unarmed man in a hospital. The Red Cross issues a statement before sunrise. Hospitals are protected spaces under international humanitarian law. The use of medical facilities for military operations, even arrest operations, violates Geneva Conventions. They're not asking for clarification. They're demanding accountability. By noon, Amnesty International calls it an apparent extrajudicial execution. The Israeli government's response is procedural. The operation targeted a terrorist who stabbed a civilian. Security forces acted within protocol. The additional casualty was an unfortunate result of a volatile situation. But that word additional becomes the problem, because additional implies unintended, and unintended implies the operatives didn't plan for witnesses, didn't plan for anyone in the room besides the target. Built an infiltration strategy, so focused on getting in that they never fully designed a way to get out without leaving bodies. The footage reveals something else. In the stairwell, after the shooting, the audio captures Hebrew voices. One of them says, "This wasn't the plan." Israeli media doesn't report that line. Palestinian media loops it. 3 months after the operation, Israeli undercover units received new protocols. Mandatory risk assessment for operations in medical facilities. Enhanced rules of engagement for environments with civilian witnesses. Approval required from higher command for any operation where cameras are present. The protocols don't mention Al-Ahli Hospital by name. They don't have to. The pregnant woman disguise, which worked perfectly as a deception, becomes a liability for future operations. Every hospital in the West Bank reviews their entrance procedures after November 2015. Security staff are trained to verify pregnant women in labor, ask for medical history, confirm which doctor they've been seeing, check IDs against appointment records. The deception that worked once becomes exponentially harder to replicate. But the deeper damage is institutional. The operation was built on a classic intelligence principle, use the environment's assumptions against itself. Hospitals assume pregnant women are legitimate. Security forces assume civilians are non-combatants. Those assumptions create gaps, and gaps create entry points. Al-Ahli Hospital proved the principle works. It also proved that exploiting those assumptions has a cost that can't be calculated in advance. Within Israeli intelligence circles, the operation is studied but not celebrated. It becomes a case study in what happens when tactical success and strategic blowback occupy the same event. They got Hazam al-Shalalday. They proved undercover infiltration could bypass protected spaces. They demonstrated that deception-based operations could achieve objectives. Conventional raids couldn't. But they also handed every human rights organization in the world a documented example of intelligence forces killing an unarmed man in a hospital while disguised as civilians. The footage plays in international law courses, in UN reports on occupation practices, in documentaries about the ethics of undercover warfare. The operatives involved are never publicly identified. Their names don't appear in investigations or media reports, but internally there are questions. Not about their competence, everyone agrees the infiltration was expertly executed. Questions about judgment, about whether the decision to shoot Abdullah was threat assessment or panic, about whether the entire operation should have been aborted the moment they realized he was in the room. Those questions don't have clear answers. The operatives maintain Abdullah posed a threat. The footage suggests otherwise. And because the operation succeeded in its primary objective, Azam was arrested, later convicted. Currently serving his sentence, there's no formal consequence. No disciplinary action, no public accountability, just new protocols, and a deception technique that can never be used the same way again. The operative who wore the pregnancy disguise never does undercover work again. Not because he's forbidden, because he requests reassignment. In debriefs, he describes the moment in the stairwell when he removed the headscarf and heard the gunshots from the floor above. Describes realizing the timeline had compressed, that something had gone wrong, that the clean infiltration was already compromised. He doesn't say he regrets the operation. He says he regrets not knowing what went wrong until it was too late to stop it. Abdullah al-Shalalda's family files a lawsuit. It goes nowhere. Israeli courts don't have jurisdiction over security operations in occupied territories, and Palestinian courts don't have jurisdiction over Israeli forces. The case becomes another entry in a long list of unresolved incidents. The footage remains online: the pregnant woman in the wheelchair, the transformation, the exit, a deception that worked exactly as designed, attached forever to a death no one can fully explain. If you want to understand how intelligence operations succeed and fail simultaneously, study the infiltrations where the disguise is perfect and the outcome is uncontrollable. Subscribe for more stories where deception creates as many problems as it solves.